and we will get reaction from the Trump campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, as well. But, Brett, we start with you tonight. Busy evening, to be sure. So many interesting moments in that interview that you just did with James Comey. What stands out to you?
Well, first, that he actually showed up. The traffic was literally, we were getting updates, 9th and Constitution, New Jersey,
right.
So we kind of shifted things around. But what stood out to me substantively was, one, that he says to this day he doesn't definitively know that the dossier was funded by the DNC and Hillary Clinton. I find that fascinating. I find it interesting. I think as you're presenting the dossier as a reason to surveil Carter Page to a FISA court, why don't you know? And when you're saying to President-elect Trump what exactly it is, it's unverified and salacious, but it's funded by your opponent. I don't know the answer to that. So I thought that was really what stuck out in my mind.
I totally agree with you. I mean, there was like a deer in the headlights look, like, gee, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea who paid for it. We didn't really look into that. This is the head of the Investigative Bureau of the United States. These are the basic questions that anybody would want to know. So you have this document. It accuses the president of these salacious things. Where did it come from? Who generated it? He said, well, I was told he was, a legitimate source, Steele, and that was, I guess, good enough for him. But they didn't. The FBI at one point considered paying Steele and bringing him on, and then they decided not to. So they must have known something was up with his credibility.
Right. I mean, he got fired by the FBI for lying about the fact that he didn't or did leak to the media. That was not told to the president-elect. And I think that the other thing that stuck out to me was about the leaking of the memos. Again, he pushed back on the word leak. I tried to get FBI protocol and the employment thing that he signed about what a leak is, but whether it's classified or not, it was work product that he had as an FBI director that he worked on, that he gave to this Columbia professor. He said it was a good friend, but it turns out he was also working at the FBI. Why does that matter? Well, what was his job? He was what? He was a valve. He was a guy that you gave stuff to. He also confirmed that the memos, including what now were considered classified memos, went to 3 other people. And we know that the FBI had to scrub the computer of one of those people after that because of intelligence. So where this goes, I don't know, but he confirmed that he talked to the IG, the Inspector General, about this very handling of memos.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what the IG finds about that, because that's the major bone of contention right now with the soundbite that you played from President Trump this morning, saying that he believes that James Comey is a leaker. He was much rougher on him than just that. And James Comey said, absolutely not. I never leaked anything. Those were my private memories. I thought of them as sort of a diary that I was putting together, and it was my right as a private citizen, having been fired by the FBI, to hand them over. But they were generated on an FBI payroll and on FBI computers, we assume. So, I wonder, Brett, obviously we're going to look closely at that IG report to find out, which one of those is actually the case in the minds of the IG.
Well, that's right. And we don't know what we don't know about that IG report, but we do know that it's going to be coming out soon. According to lawmakers on the Hill, they think it's going to be explosive because he's been working on it for a long time. The other thing that struck me about the interview is when he said at the end that he would still be FBI director tonight. Listening to this media rollout and this media blitz about this book, which, by the way, has done very well selling, he has not shied away from saying that the president is morally unfit, that, people should vote their conscience but not vote for this guy because he doesn't match the values and principles that I have and that the country should have. And yet he said, as of tonight, had he not been fired, he would still be working for this person, as he's lambasting Republicans for working with this person who was duly elected by the American public. I just thought that was I tried to see if there's a disconnect in his mind, and there wasn't.
Fascinating. Brett, thank you so much. Great having you here tonight.
Thanks, Martha.
So Corey Lewandowski is with us as well this evening, and he has his reaction to this and other things that are cropping up in Trump land. Trump's former campaign manager. Corey, good evening. What went through your mind as you watched all of that?
Well, this is a man with maybe the greatest messiah complex we've ever seen. I mean, this is a man who decides what is right and wrong. He decides what information should be given to the American people and what shouldn't. This is a man who's trying to justify the leaking of classified information, whether it's to his friend, to his attorneys, or to whoever he decides is appropriate. It's okay as long as he's made the decision. It doesn't matter what the FBI rules are. It doesn't matter what the protocols are. Jim Comey, who is using government documents, government information, government computers to put this information on, has decided that it is in his best interest to make it his personal diary, regardless of what the rules say. Jim Comey is the one who decides what's right and wrong for this country now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you look back at the Hillary Clinton investigation and you think about the emails and the fact that they were done on a state server and that she had a private email address. You know, all of those same issues kind of converge. And the thinking in that investigation was that basically anything that was done under the auspices of Secretary of State on computers, discussing things with other people that you work with, was all considered to be government property. So it's interesting that it sounds like he holds himself to a slightly different standard there. I want to move on to some other things. The president lost Ronnie Jackson as his VA secretary prospect today. What do you think about that, Corey?
I think it's the very worst that Washington, D.C. has to offer. This is a man who served his country with distinction, both in the military overseas and here domestically. He served 3 presidents. You know, never during his tenure when he has gone through 3 FBI background checks or had the opportunity to get his first star were any of these issues raised. And now this president puts him up to be the secretary of the VA, and all of a sudden 23 unnamed sources come forward with stories which aren't corroborated, which have never been brought forth to take down a man who's clearly, by all accounts, even by the accounts of the Democrats and Barack Obama himself, has been phenomenal in his role as the chief physician to the president of the United States. This is everything that's wrong in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, you know, I mean, John Tester went after him with a hammer and put all of these things out there, and then went on national television and said, you know, I can't say 100% sure that these things are actually happened. So it was basically his word against the word of Dr. Jackson. But the president this morning went after Tester. He said that he thinks he's going to pay for what he did. What do you think he meant by that?
Well, I think what you're going to see is John Tester is going to be held accountable at the ballot box in November. You know, the state of Montana is a state that Donald Trump won by more than 20 points. It's a state that historically votes very conservatively. And now the people of Montana have seen the real John Tester. This is a man who comes to Washington, says one thing, goes back to Montana and says something different. We've now seen him destroy a career of a superiorly qualified individual to be the secretary of the VA because he wants to play partisan politics.
One more quick question for you. Rudy Giuliani in the mix now. Is he going to broach a deal for the president to sit down with Robert Mueller?
Well, I love the fact that Rudy is now part of the president's legal team. I think he's the right person. He has the political skills. He has the legal skills. And I think what you're going to do is see Mayor Giuliani negotiate with Robert Mueller to come to a resolution as it relates to the president, to bring a conclusion to this fake investigation where there's been no collusion with the president and any outside sources. So I think that's what the mayor's going to focus on. And I think it's very important to have the American people bring that to a conclusion as well.
There was a report today that said that Mueller reiterated that he would like a chance to ask Trump questions about the steps he took during the transition and early months of the administration. He emphasized that an interview is essential for investigators to understand Trump's intent in making key decisions as they seek to wrap up the portion of the probe focused on potential obstruction of justice. Quick thought.
No obstruction of justice whatsoever. Look, I think this has been very clear. This investigation has now been going for almost a year and a half. It's spent millions of taxpayer dollars. It's time to end it.
Corey Lewandowski, always good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up next, what a day for the man who used to be known as America's dad. Bill Cosby, guilty on 3 counts of sexual assault.
It's been a very long journey, but this is an historic result.
In a landmark verdict for the Me Too movement, the comedian will likely spend the rest of his life in prison because dozens of women were brave enough to come forward with their stories, and it was adjudicated in a court of law today. Attorney Kimberly Guilfoyle and Mark Thiessen on the impact on the culture and the country from this case. Also, 2 former NFL cheerleaders suing the NFL for discrimination. They are willing to make a deal for just $1, but they have some conditions. Bailey Davis and Christian Ann Ware join us again exclusively with their proposal for the NFL next.
I guess it is kind of a double standard, you know, where the football players are held to and then what women are held to in the NFL.
The Story is brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty stands with you.
Insurance that won't replace the full value of your new car? You're better off throwing your money right into the harbor. Gonna regret that.
With new car replacement, if your brand new car gets totaled, Liberty Mutual will pay the entire value plus depreciation. Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
If you have moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, little things can be a big deal. That's why there's Otezla. Otezla is not an injection or a cream. It's a pill that treats psoriasis differently. With Otezla, 75% clear skin is achievable after just 4 months, with reduced redness, thickness, and scaliness of plaques. And the Otezla prescribing information has no requirement for routine lab monitoring. Don't use if you're allergic to Otezla. Otezla may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Tell your doctor if these occur. Otezla is associated with an increased risk of depression. Tell your doctor if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts or if these feelings develop. Some people taking Otezla reported weight loss. Your doctor should monitor your weight and may stop treatment. Other side effects include upper respiratory tract infection and headache. Tell your doctor about all the medicines you take and if you're pregnant or planning to be. Otezla, show more of you.
Finally back out in our yard.
But so are they.
Introducing Scott's Turf Builder Triple Action. It kills weeds, prevents crabgrass, and feeds so grass can thrive. Guaranteed.
Our backyard is back.
This is a Scott's Yard.
With the Honda Clarity Plug-in Hybrid, the end of your battery charge isn't the end of the world. It runs on electric and has gas if you need it for a range rating of 340 miles. The all-new Clarity Plug-in Hybrid from Honda.
It's SUV season at Dave Knapp Ford. This month only. Get $2,000 matching down payment bonus cash when you purchase a new 2018 Escape, Edge, or Explorer. Plus, get 0% interest for 60 months. Dave Knapp Ford Lincoln. Your home here.
When it comes to your internet, speed is the most important factor. And Spectrum Internet Ultra is now faster than ever. At 400 megabits per second, it's 4 times faster than your current speed. You can enjoy 4K content, quickly download huge files, and stream HD on multiple devices at the same time. Upgrade to 400 megabits for as little as $25 more a month. Free in-home Wi-Fi is included. Spectrum Internet Ultra. Go faster. Visit spectrum.com today.
It's SUV season at Dave Knapp Ford. This month only. Get $2,000 matching down payment bonus cash when you purchase a new 2018 Escape, Edge, or Explorer. Plus, get 0% interest for 60 months. Dave Knapp Ford Lincoln. Your home here.
Today, as Bill Cosby, America's dad, what a stunning moment this was in the courtroom, found guilty on 3 charges of aggravated assault. The details of this case were horrific. The 80-year-old could now spend the rest of his life behind bars. It is obviously just an unbelievable fall from grace for this man who found fame in stand-up. He befriended athletes and presidents. He wrote books about fatherhood.
You really don't have to worry about cheese. You just... Stop. Hey! Stop. No, come on. Stop. Look, the two of you... Did you tell Denise she could go out on a date tonight?
Yes, I did.
Well, have you seen the boy?
Yes, I have.
Well, how ugly is he?
Trace Gallagher, live in our West Coast newsroom. Boy, those were the good old days for Bill Cosby. Today was not one of those, Trace.
No, not at all. When the verdict was read, Martha, the courtroom erupted. Prosecutors hugged and Cosby's accusers cried. Those inside the court say Bill Cosby himself stared straight ahead, showing little, if any, emotion. But that quickly changed when District Attorney Kevin Steele demanded that Cosby go straight to jail. When Steele told the judge that Cosby has an airplane and could flee, the former TV star called Steele an a-hole, shouting, "I'm sick of you." The judge decided that because of Cosby's age and his health, he would remain free until sentencing. The trial itself lasted 2 weeks, with accuser Andrea Constand telling the jury that Cosby knocked her out with blue pills and then sexually violated her. 5 other women also testified that Cosby drugged and raped them, but the star defense witness told the jury that Andrea Constand once told her that she could frame a high-profile person. And during their 14 hours of deliberations, the jury of 7 men and 5 women asked the court to read back the testimony of that star defense witness, leading some experts to believe the jury was leaning toward acquittal. That was not to be. Andrea Constand did not address the media, but here's one of Cosby's other accusers, followed by the DA. Watch.
Today, this jury has shown that what the Me Too movement has saying is that women are worthy of being believed. And I thank the jury. I thank the prosecution.
What was revealed through this investigation was a man who had spent decades preying on women that he drugged and sexually assaulted, and a man who had evaded this moment here today for far too long.
Defense attorney Tom Mesereau, who successfully defended Michael Jackson against child molestation charges back in 2005, had this to say.
We are very disappointed by the verdict. We don't think Mr. Cosby is guilty of anything, and the fight is not over. Thank you.
And recall that during a deposition given a decade ago, Bill Cosby acknowledged he gave quaaludes to women he wanted to have sex with, saying, quote, the same as a person would say, have a drink. So far, no sentencing date, but Pennsylvania state law requires it be within 90 days. Martha.
Trace, thank you very much. Kimberly Guilfoyle, an attorney and co-host of The Five. Mark Thiessen, an American Enterprise Institute scholar and a Fox News contributor, join me now. Kimberly, let me start with you on this. I was fascinated by your coverage on this today. Obviously, with your background, this is something you understand very well. What did you think of this verdict?
Yeah, you know, this was it was a compelling verdict and really a seminal moment, you know, in terms of the prosecution of sexual assault cases. When I worked at the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office and the San Francisco DA's office, this is one of my areas of specialties, and working with victims, people who have been aggrieved by sexual predators. And he actually would furnish, supply, and groom them with drugs, with Benadryl, something so that he could overcome them. And even more insidious than that is that they would be unable to maybe identify or recollect to be able to go forward to report a case or a crime. That's what you see in some of these situations, because they want to be able to go on and move on to the next victim. So the jury coming back with this verdict I thought was compelling. 3 counts. He's looking at 30 years total, 10 for each. The judge will have a determination at sentencing, and there'll be sentencing memos provided and sentencing hearings where you'll be able to hear from some of the victims, victim impact statements.
That's gonna be interesting.
Really powerful and important for people who have been the victim of sexual assault to have some kind of expression, to feel validated as a human being, because you live in so much shame and sorrow and upset and anxiety for so many years, especially people being called names like this woman was in the courtroom.
Yeah, no, it was stunning. And Mark, you know, one of the things that I thought was so fascinating and satisfying in a way about what happened today is with all of this Me Too movement that we've watched going on, and so much of it has been adjudicated in the court of public opinion. This was adjudicated in a courtroom. And I thought that was a big moment for all of this, because this was laid out for a jury. You know, the first case was a mistrial. Again, they went back. This is the way that it is supposed to work. Right.
Absolutely, and I think it's probably the first of many. If I was Harvey Weinstein, I would be looking nervously at the news today about Bill Cosby. But look, this is also a great week for the long arm of the law. I mean, we just after 42 years on the run, the authorities just apprehended the Golden State Killer, a guy who raped and murdered tons of women, and now we've got Bill Cosby, who is in his 80s. He's evaded justice for these crimes for decades, and he's finally receiving justice as as well. So the long arm of the law, people, the lesson of all this is if you stick with it, if you don't give up, if you demand justice, eventually the justice system works.
The prosecutor was so moved today when he was speaking, and he had his whole team there. He talked about their dedication, the other things they gave up to stick to this case, and I thought it was a very fine
together with with the detectives, the witnesses, and you become almost family. I did that in the dog mauling case.
Absolutely feel that with them. I want to ask you both about Alfie Evans, this case of a little child who is in a London hospital, and they're refusing to release him. He has a degenerative neurological disorder, although his father says he never has really been convinced that he's been properly diagnosed. Kimberly, they won't allow the parents to remove him. He's been accepted by a hospital in Italy. That's what the parents want to do. Why on earth, how can you keep a parent from taking their child to a different hospital?
Well, you think it really does go very much so to the core of parental rights. And can you imagine not being able to take your child that you love and be able to do something that you want to provide dignity and comfort with a hospital that's already accepted? You think that they would work cooperatively in the best interest of parents that are grieving and suffering enough. But the laws are very different as well, in the UK. And so they really are quite adamant and aggressive in terms of how they handle these cases, and they almost take control of your own child.
It's unbelievable. I mean, as a parent, I just think, go in there and just grab your child and go out. That would be my gut feeling, Mark. What is going on here?
They can't do that because the British government has placed 30 police officers outside the hospital to prevent them from doing it. I mean, Alfie Evans is literally a hostage of the British government. They are not just letting him die, they are killing him. Literally. And, the doctors aren't always right. The doctor testified in court that he would probably take a few breaths after the ventilation was removed and then would die very quickly. And now we're going into our 4th day where he's breathing on his own. So what I don't understand is why are the British so determined to make sure that Alfie dies in that hospital room?
They're treating him like property or chattel, and it's really disgusting because there's no human dignity there. The parents want to love and take care of him. It's something gone horribly wrong.
And they're essentially saying we know better than the parents.
Right.
Thank you very much, you guys. I got to leave it there. Great to see you both, really. Thank you so much. So coming up next tonight, President Trump becoming a big player on the world stage after historic and successful meetings, by most accounts, with the French President Emmanuel Macron this week. But critics say that they don't think it went all that well. White House veteran Bill Bennett with his take. Also, Kanye West. Have you ever heard the name Kanye West so often on news? And, it's really incredible what's going on here. He's not backing down for his support of President Trump, despite his famous friends who are texting him and trying to convince him to come to their way of thinking. Karl Rove and Juan Williams on that and a few more things when we come back.
He sees that stuff, and he's smart. And he says, you know what? Trump is doing a much better job than the Democrats did.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like him a lot.
Well, that was fun, right? So the president's critics have insisted that he has no friends, really, on the world stage. Now there is concern that there was too much affection. And there's a pretty clear effort to turn what appeared to be, overall, a pretty successful meeting between these two into something very different. Check out these headlines. Macron embraces Trump and elegantly knifes him in the back. Macron treats Congress to a full-scale takedown of Trumpism. After the hugs and kisses, Macron rips Trumpism. So is that what happened? Here now, Bill Bennett, former Secretary of Education under President Reagan and a Fox News contributor. Bill, good to see you as always. So would you call what the French president did over his stay a sound rejection of Trumpism?
No, it was a 1/3 or maybe 1/2 rejection. This is the French, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We've been dealing with them for 250 years, and this happens with the French. Look, the morning of before Macron addressed Congress on my podcast, I said, all right, I've seen all the hugs, I've seen all the kisses, the handshakes, the taking of the dandruff off of Macron's jacket. Enough. Let's go. Get on the plane and go back. And then he gives this speech to Congress in which he attacks nationalism.
You don't sound like you like the French very much,
Donald
Bill.
Trump is. No, I like them fine, but I like them, you know, 2/3. They're not, you know, I mean, that this is, you get to know the French. And I appreciate Lafayette and I appreciate Rochambeau, but, you know, there are a lot more Americans buried in France than French buried here. You know, it's always been one-sided. I thought the president extended himself beautifully. Macron reciprocated somewhat. But most important thing, the president is marching on, and his foreign policy objectives are strong, and he's having serious meetings. It's a serious meeting with Macron, particularly about Iran and other things, despite the fact that Macron wants us back with the Paris Peace Accord. Angela Merkel's now in town, and look at those pictures of Pompeo, Mike Pompeo with Kim Jong-un. This is pretty good stuff for a novice president. He's doing better in the beginning of his second year than Obama did at year 8.
I mean, it's fascinating when you look at, you know, when you sort of put those two things up against each other, this notion that he doesn't have any friends around the world, doesn't get along well with people, and you look at the bridges that have opened with President Xi in China, the difference that that has made in North Korea, the alliance that we have seen building with Syria, and now you've got the invitation to the United Kingdom as well. I'm sure Theresa May was watching all of this very closely as well. But, you know, my take on the speech to Congress, Bill, was that he... You know, you have a couple of audiences when you're in Macron's situation. You have the folks at home who you have to, you know, throw an olive branch to.